The tiles in the kitchen hum when no one speaks in the hallway. Light flickers only when I blink. There's nothing unusual about the house if you're just passing through, but if you sit with it, if you let it settle around you like a thick coat or a second skin, it starts to remember things you didn't tell Heidi moved in midwinter, when breath still hung in the air long after the words had been said, and my fingers ached from the cold. Even inside my gloves, the landlord handed me the key. With a certain tiredness, like it had passed through too many hands too quickly, he said it was a quiet place end of the row, older than it looked. He didn't mention the tenants before me until I asked, just a shrug. Some places aren't for everyone. I took that as charm. I should have taken it as a warning. First night I barely slept, not because of noise, there wasn't any, but because of the quiet that pressed into my ears like water. You don't realize how much background sound makes up your life until it's gone. No cars, no creaks, no wind, just the house still waiting. The rooms felt too neat, like someone had just left and might come back for their coat. There were little things they'd left behind: a chipped coffee mug under the sink, an old envelope tucked between two drawers, a lone glove in the attic eaves. Nothing sinister, nothing strange, but I kept them all. I don't know why. By the third month I'd memorized the layout: 8 rooms, 2 floors, 1 attic, no basement. Though there was a small locked panel in the floor of the laundry room, it looked too small to fit through, more like a dumbwaiter cover than anything else. I never thought much of it. That's how it begins, I think. You never think much of the first thing, you just move around. Heidi started hearing the sound around April at 4:13 a.m. exactly, not loud, not even clear, just a tap like a fingernail on ceramic, always from beneath the floor. It wasn't mice. It was slower than that, intentional. The first time it happened, I stood in the kitchen barefoot waiting for it again. Nothing. I went back to bed, but I kept waking up before it. That's what scared me the most, that my body knew something was about to begin. I kept a journal back then. Nothing poetic, just lists of what I ate, what I heard, what I dreamed. The dream started in May. Always the same hallway, always the same ending, a door that wasn't there when I woke. I marked its position on the wall with a pencil. Next night I dreamed the same hallway again, but this time the door had a brass handle. By the end of May, the handle had a keyhole, and the wallpaper in the dream had started peeling. I never opened it. I always woke up first. One morning, I checked the wall in the waking world, and the pencil mark was gone. Not faded, gone, like I'd written on skin, and it had healed. I asked the landlord again, casually, about the house. He didn't say much, just that it was built before records were clean. The neighborhood was newer, built up around it. The house used to stand alone. I asked if it ever had a basement. He looked at me too long, then too briefly. Not anymore. I stopped asking questions after that. In June, the tap changed. It became a knock, and not on the floor, on the walls. The first time it came from inside the kitchen wall. While I was washing dishes, I dropped a plate. It shattered. The knock didn't stop. 5 slow raps. Then silence. I pressed my hand to the drywall, half expecting warmth or vibration. Nothing, just the slow pulse of blood in my palm. Bought a motion detector, just a simple one from a hardware store. I put it in the hallway where the sound seemed loudest. I told myself it was a raccoon, or maybe water pressure, but I wanted to see. The next morning the device was gone, not moved, gone. Batteries still on the floor where I'd left them nearby, but the detector itself vanished. I checked every drawer, every surface, the garbage, the attic. Nothing. That night I locked my bedroom door. I didn't sleep. The knock didn't come, but I kept hearing breathing. Not loud, not sharp, just faint and rhythmic, like someone had fallen asleep against the wall. One morning in late June, I noticed something strange with the light in the living room. The sunlight hit the floor in a perfect square as always, but this time the square was smaller, a little tighter. I measured it, 4 inches shorter than the week before. I thought it was the time of year, the sun shifting, but when I checked the old photos on my phone, the shape had always been larger, and when I opened the curtain fully, the light shrank again. Like it didn't want to be watched. I stopped opening that curtain after a while. Some things shrink when they're seen. Some things hide better than youth. Mail became a problem in July. Letters started arriving addressed to names I didn't recognize. Nothing modern, no ads, no statements. Just handwritten envelopes yellowed slightly, all postmarked from a town I didn't know. The handwriting was old, slanted, feminine. I never opened them. I kept them in a drawer. By the end of the month, there were 17, all from the same sender, no return address. The last one didn't have a stamp, just my house number and a single line on the envelope. Please write back, you said you would. My name was nowhere on it. Knock returned that night, louder, closer. I stood in the hallway, hand against the cold wall, and I swear, I felt movement, like something shifting behind. The paint rearranging itself slowly, deliberately. The next morning, the panel in the laundry room was ajar. I didn't open it. Not then, but I couldn't stop looking at it. Every time I passed that part of the house, my eyes were pulled down like magnets. I started to dream the hallway again, but the door was open now, and there were stairs. I set a camera in the laundry room. Just a basic old camcorder I'd had since college. I aimed it at the panel and hit record. I let it run for 8 hours. When I checked the footage, the first 7 hours were still. Then in the last 40 minutes, something strange happened. The screen went black for 1 second, just one. Then it returned, but the panel was fully open. No movement, no sound, just a change. Tape ended quietly. I rewound it 5 times. The gap was always exactly 1 second. I didn't sleep at all that night. I stood at the top of the stairs, holding the camera, listening to the house breathe by. August, the neighbors stopped waving. A few houses down, a woman I'd spoken to once in spring crossed the street. When she saw me, I called out. She didn't answer. Her child looked at me and cried. I hadn't said anything yet. He started hearing music from under the floor, a piano out of tune. Faint, same song each time, slow, like someone was learning. I found a vent near the laundry room floor and held my ear to it. The keys were being pressed one by one. No rhythm, no hands, just a pattern repeating. The same 3 notes, then a pause, then again. It was familiar. I couldn't place it. I called my brother, asked if it sounded like anything Mom used to play. He hesitated, then said, "She used to hum that when you got sick. Before bed, you remember." I didn't. The 1st of September. I finally opened the panel. The air inside was dry, cold. The stairs were concrete, narrow. They led down into a space that shouldn't have been there. I counted the steps. 15. Then a landing, then darkness. The camcorder's battery light blinked red. I recorded anyway, just the first few steps. Then my voice quietly, "This shouldn't be here." That was Allie. Played the footage back upstairs. My voice wasn't there. Instead, a woman whispered, "You said you'd write back." I left the house that night, slept in my car. But in the morning, when I looked in the glove box, I found one of the letters, the one without the stamp, still sealed. I moved through the next days like a passenger in my own body. I'd try to read, but the words would rearrange. I'd boil water and forget what it was, for my reflection started to linger after I moved, just a second too long. I stopped looking at mirrors. On the 6th of September, the piano song stopped. It never resumed. Instead, there was a voice, not singing, not speaking, just breathing into something metal, a recorder maybe. It would start at 4:13 a.m. and continue until sunrise. The same cadence as mine. I stopped dreaming, or maybe I just stopped waking. One night I found a piece of the wall behind the hallway mirror had been carved, a circle with a line through it. I traced it with my finger. My skin pulsed. It was warm, like breath had touched it. He called the landlord again. No answer. I drove to the address on the lease. It was a vacant lot. The office was gone. No record of the company online. I tried city records. Nothing. I tried asking neighbors again, but no one answered the door. One house had all its windows blacked out. Another had mail piled up from months ago. I realized then that I hadn't seen another person on my street in over 3 weeks. I came home. The letters were gone. The camcorder was gone. The wall where I'd marked the hallway dream had been repainted. I don't own paint. I don't know how they matched the color. He should have left then, I know that. But the house felt like the only thing that knew me anymore. Like it was the last place that remembered I'd existed. Knock returned one final time. Then the stairs creaked. but I was upstairs. I opened the laundry room door. The panel was shut, this time nailed down. There were fingerprints in the dust around it. Child-sized, I went to the kitchen. Every cabinet was open, not swung open carefully, like someone had taken inventory. At exactly 4:13 a.m., the humming started. Again, it wasn't music this time. It was a voice, mine, saying the same thing over and over. I'm still here. I covered my ears. It didn't help. The voice was inside the walls, inside the vents, inside May. Don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up on the 15th step of the basement. There was a chair in front of me and a small table. On the table was a single envelope. My name was on it in handwriting I couldn't place. I opened it. Inside was a photograph of the house, same as now. But the window panes were covered in faces, mine repeated dozens, all slightly off, like someone had been practicing. On the back a line, you said you'd never leave. Looked up and the stairs were gone, and I finally understood what had happened to the others. They didn't leave, they just stayed too long. The first time I heard it, I was trying to fix the antenna with one hand while holding a mug of cold tea in the other, thinking the crackling was just the usual garbage that drifted in from truckers or some local police scanner bleed. But then two voices broke through, one deep and low, the other small and cracking, like the sound of a child trying to imitate an adult, and neither of them should have been speaking because both belonged to people I had already buried under the hill behind. The barn. The radio wasn't new, wasn't even digital. It was one of those battered wood grain portables with the dial you had to turn slowly too far in one direction, and you'd get evangelists shouting, or static too far the other, and it would hiss like steam through a wall. The sweet spot though, right between 892 and 895. That's where I heard them. That's where their voices lived. I didn't say anything about it for the first 3 days, just kept turning it back on every morning, like I was checking a wound to see if it still bled, and every time at exactly 7:16 a.m., the voices would start up again, never loud, never panicked, just talking in a way that made my chest feel tight, like overhearing your parents discuss a secret you weren't supposed to know when you were too young to understand it, but old enough to know it would ruin everything. They didn't say my name, not at first. They talked about the sky and how dark it got under the soil, how the bugs tasted, how their fingers had started fusing together like wax, but not about me. I told myself they were figments, audio hallucinations caused by the frequency overlapping with distant stations, or my own memories catching on some leftover electrical signal. The way tape used to imprint echoes onto itself, it was easier to believe that than to admit I recognized them, their tones, the slight lisp in his S's, the breathless way she said okay when she didn't really mean it. It was easier to pretend. I wasn't losing time because I think I found my boots outside by the hill one morning, caked in a kind of red clay that only appeared during hard rains, but it hadn't rained in weeks, and I don't remember walking out there. I found the back door unlatched twice. I found my own handwriting on the kitchen chalkboard in a sentence I never remember writing. Don't touch the dial when it's warm. There was a time, I think, when I could explain this to someone, maybe to a friend or a neighbor, but after Lorna died, most of the calls stopped, and after I sold the livestock, no one had much reason to check in. The land was too quiet, too still. I wasn't used to the house being so empty, but I told myself that's what healing was, a silence thick enough to stand inside. I played the radio because I couldn't bear the way the floor creaked under its own memory. But then I started hearing the phrase, "He hears us, doesn't he?" And I swear the radio's light would flicker brighter when they said it. That was the first cliff edge, the first time I realized this wasn't about them talking. It was about them noticing. I tried to throw it away. I walked it down to the old creek bed and left it there overnight, buried under a stack of wet leaves and a few rusted soda cans. But when I woke up, it was back on the kitchen counter, still tuned to that gap between stations, still playing that thin, low static, like someone holding in a breath. I didn't touch it for hours, just watched it. The knobs were clean, too clean, like someone had wiped the dust off gently. The air smelled like oranges, like her perfume. I don't keep citrus in the house. I started leaving the hallway lights on at night, but they'd always be off by morning. I began to wonder if the house had begun rewinding me. There's a noise the radio makes now before the voices start, a kind of wet clicking like teeth, tapping on glass or fingernails, snapping in rhythm, and sometimes it matches the ticking of the clock above the stove. But then the clock will freeze, and the sound will keep going. I stopped trusting time. I stopped writing dates on the calendar. Something about the number 16 keeps returning, 716, and the 16th step to the back hill, the 16th of March, when I first found the ground behind the barn disturbed. Like someone had tried to dig their way up but ran out of fingers. I don't sleep in the bedroom anymore. I move between the guest room and the sofa, always keeping the radio in sight. I started marking things, knife scratches in the doorframe, little notches in the side of the counter, to prove I hadn't imagined certain moments. Certain nights I've made 42 of them, but sometimes I count 43 or 41. There's a detail I haven't mentioned, and I don't know why. It feels like saying it aloud might finish something. Close and trapdoor. I didn't realize I was standing on the man on the radio, the one with the lisp. He hums a tune I've never known the name of, but my father used to whistle it when burying fence posts. A long, slow hum with a dip at the end, like someone going down a hill. I used to hum it too. I didn't realize that until I heard myself humming it in the kitchen last week, and couldn't remember starting. I smashed the mug in my hand when I realized the radio wasn't even on. I unplugged it, took the batteries out, sealed it in a box, and still, at 716, a low hum came from the corner of the room. My voice, but not mine. My hum, but from the wrong throat. I found a tape in the attic. One of those little micro cassettes we used to use for the answering machine before digital. It had no label, no date. When I played it back on the old handheld recorder, all I heard was breathing, long steady breathing for 5 minutes, then the sound of a screen door opening, and then her voice, Lorna's voice, low, half asleep, whispering. He left it on again. Silence. Then the sound of something being dragged. I've listened to it 7 times. I think the dragging is me. They started asking questions on the radio, not just vague conversation anymore. Do you remember the fire? Do you remember the pills? Do you remember why we're down here? I didn't at first, but lately it's been coming back in pieces. The silence in the house before it happened. The weight of choices that never felt dramatic until they couldn't be undone. The storm that knocked the power out for 3 days. The fact that she asked me not to leave her alone. The sound the rope made in the barn loft. The click of the radio turning itself on the next morning like a gentle reminder. I think the house is holding on to things I should have let rot. I think the dirt under the hill is breathing. I think I left myself behind when I buried them. There's a second chalk message now next to the one I don't remember writing. It says, "You'll answer soon." I don't know what that means. I don't know who wrote it. The handwriting is slanted, sharp, familiar in a way that makes my teeth ache. Like seeing your own face in a photograph you don't remember posing for. Sometimes I hear other voices in the background. Tiny ones, children, they be counting, always stopping. At 16, always starting over. The radio doesn't work outside the house. I carried it to town once, to the diner parking lot, and the voices disappeared entirely. Just static, just normal, but when I brought it back inside, it was already on already. Speaking, I left it on the porch one night to test if it needed to be near me, but around midnight it started knocking against the door like it wanted to be let in. I opened it. I don't remember why, I just remember the door handle being warm and the static sounding like my name. This morning the radio played something different. A recording of my voice from somewhere. I don't remember saying, "They were always under us." Just that over and over, until the battery died. I didn't even know it had batteries in it. I don't know how long I've been here. I don't know how many notches I've made. I just know that when I stop listening, the house gets louder, the wind gets heavier, the air starts to taste like oranges again, and the dirt behind the barn smells like breath. I tried to leave once. Packed a bag, got in the truck, turned the key, and nothing. Not dead, not broken, Just nothing like the key was a prop, like the engine was a lie. I walked down the driveway and ended up back at the porch. Without turning around, the trees didn't move, but they weren't in the same place. I think the land curves in on itself now. Like a throat, like it's swallowing time. They spoke to me today, clearly like they were sitting across the table. "It's better," she said, "if you just come down." He added, "You're already mostly there." I don't know what that means, but I haven't checked my reflection in days. I don't trust what I'll see. I've been having dreams. Or maybe memories of a second hill behind the barn, when I don't remember digging one with a fresh marker, my name on it. No date, just soon. Haven't turned the radio off in 6 nights. The voices are getting clearer, closer sometimes. Feel breath on my neck when they speak. Sometimes I see shadows that match mine, but lag a few steps behind. I found dirt under my fingernails this morning, but I haven't been outside. I don't think I sleep. I think I just wait with my eyes closed. The humming hasn't stopped. It's in the pipes now, in the hum of the fridge, in the tick of the clock that doesn't tick anymore. There's a third voice now, new young. It only says one thing over and over. He's the last one. I don't know who it means. I don't know if it's right. I don't remember what I forgot, but I think I will soon. I think when the radio stops, I'll know everything, and I don't want to.